You know that feeling when you use an app, maybe a website, and it just works? Like really works. Everything flows. It kind of knows what you need next.
Yeah, it makes things effortless.
Exactly. But then there's the other side, right? That app that makes you want to, I don't know, throw your phone, where every tap feels like a fight.
Oh, I know that feeling well. Utter
Oh,
frustration.
it's that huge difference between, delight and disaster. It's not luck. It's not random. It's actually down to something specific. User experience design, UX design.
Precisely. And that's what we're going to really dig into today. We've looked at insights from places like the UX Design Institute, the Interaction Design Foundation, and key thinkers like Don Norman, Jeff Johnson,
Right.
to give you a kind of shortcut to understanding what really makes these digital products work for us, how they become human-centered.
So our mission today for you listening is to get past those basic definitions you probably already know. We want to uncover maybe the deeper thinking, the strategies, even the surprising little things that make for great UX.
Yeah, think of it like a peek behind the curtain.
Yeah.
How designers actually engineer those moments where technology just feels intuitive.
Okay, so let's start framing it up. What exactly is UX design? Because like you said, people know the term, but maybe not the full scope.
Right. So at its heart, UX design is this really deliberate process. It's about creating products, services too, that solve a specific problem you have and making sure using them is, well, easy and even enjoyable.
Easy and enjoyable.
Yeah, it's about providing experiences that feel meaningful, relevant, from start to finish.
When I hear design, honestly, my first thought is often visual, how it looks, but it sounds like you're saying UX is way bigger than just the aesthetics.
Oh, absolutely. Much bigger. It's a much more holistic viewpoint. Don Norman, he actually coined the term user experience. Way
Mhm.
back in the 90s, he put it really well. He said something like, no product is an island. A product is more than the product. It is a cohesive, integrated set of experiences.
Integrated set of experiences. Okay.
So that means UX covers, well, everything. The branding that first grabs you, the marketing, the actual box it comes in, setting it up, using it day to day, even calling support later. It's the whole journey.
The entire journey. Wow. Okay, that's a really important distinction. And that brings us right to that classic point of confusion, UX versus UI. User interface. Where does that fit in? People mix them up all the time.
They really do. And look, UI user interface and even usability, they're absolutely vital, super important. But they're really subsets, like pieces of the bigger UX picture.
Okay.
Think of UX as the overall strategy, the feeling. It's about why you're using something, what problem it's solving for you. UI is more the how. It's the visual execution, the buttons, the sliders, the colors, the layout, how you actually interact with it.
So UX is the why and what? UI is the how.
Pretty much. And, a lot of companies, they struggle to connect those two properly. You end up with products that might look stunning, but are impossible to use, or maybe they work okay, but just look awful. Bridging that gap, that's the real craft.
Right. So it's not just about making a pretty button, but understanding how that button fits into my whole mental map of how this thing should work. You also mentioned earlier something interesting, that designers don't directly control how I feel or perceive something. How do they even approach influencing that then?
Yeah, that's a really sharp question. So the ISO, the International Organization for Standardization, they define UX as a person's perceptions and responses
Mm-hmm.
from the use or anticipated use of a product. And Jeff Johnson, he's a computer science professor, he clarified it nicely. One cannot design a user experience, only design for a user experience.
Design for it. Okay.
Exactly. What designers can control very carefully is the product's behavior, how it acts, its look, its presentation. And it's through controlling those things, the behavior and the look, that they influence how you perceive it, how you respond, and ultimately how you feel using it.
Okay, so if they're designing for an experience, that sounds like it needs a really deep understanding of like psychology and human behavior. How do they actually start that process? Systematically. They usually frame it around the who, why, what, and how. The why is absolutely key. That's your motivations, your values, the real underlying problem you need solved.
The deep reason.
Right. Then the what is the functionality. What does the product actually do? And finally, the how is making that functionality accessible, usable, maybe even pleasant to interact with. But the crucial thing, skilled designers always start with the why. Always. Before they even think about what or how.
That makes so much sense. It's not just throwing features out there. It's understanding the core need first. Okay, and speaking of systematic, our sources talk about 7 fundamental UX design principles, like a guide for designers.
Exactly. They act like a compass, always pointing towards putting you, the user, first. And honestly, understanding these gives you a great way to look at pretty much any product you use.
Okay, let's break them down. First one, user centricity. Sounds like the absolute core, the foundation. It really is. User centricity just means that every single decision the UX designer makes should prioritize your needs. They base choices on really understanding your behaviors, your goals, sometimes even needs you don't realize you have.
Needs you don't realize.
Yeah, it's not just asking people, what do you want? It's observing, figuring out the actual problems they face.
Mm.
Like, think about ketchup bottles.
Ketchup bottles.
Yeah. You know how they used to be glass, hard to get the ketchup out?
Yeah.
The switch to those upside-down plastic squeeze bottles wasn't because people asked for that specific design. It happened because designers watched people struggling, getting frustrated. They saw the real problem.
The hitting the bottom of the bottle problem.
Exactly. They designed for that frustration.
So it's about spotting those friction points, even if we can't quite articulate them ourselves.
Okay, so once you're focused on the user, how do you stop them from having to constantly relearn things? That sounds like consistency. Principle number 2. Consistency is huge. Yeah. It means design should look and work in a predictable way across different pages in an app, different screens, even different products from the same company.
Right.
But it also means meeting your expectations based on how similar products out there already work. You know, standard icons, little magnifying glass usually means search. Or how booking a flight online generally follows a similar pattern, whichever airline site you're on.
So you don't have to learn a whole new system every time.
Exactly. It lowers the cognitive load,
Hmm.
makes things feel familiar, easier to navigate, less confusion, less effort.
Which makes us feel comfortable faster.
Okay.
Okay. Then number 3 is hierarchy. What's that about?
Hierarchy is all about guiding your eye, basically. It shapes how you navigate by organizing stuff, information, visuals in order of importance.
Organizing stuff. Okay.
Yeah, there are 2 sides to it.
Yeah.
There's information architecture, that's like the overall structure, how things are grouped, think website menus. Then there's visual hierarchy that's on the page itself, using size, color, placement to make important things stand out.
Like bigger headlines.
Exactly. Bigger fonts for headlines, maybe key buttons are brighter. On a site like, say, the World Wildlife Fund, the main menu items are clear. Maybe less crucial stuff is tucked into drop-downs. On a specific page, like maybe charity.water, you'll see big headings grab you first. Then you read the details. It just helps you scan and find what matters quickly.
It's like visual signposting, making the important things jump out. Got it.
Huh.
But design doesn't happen in a bubble, right? That sounds like the next one. Context.
Precisely. Context is critical. Designers have to think about your specific situation when you're likely to use the product.
My situation, like where I am.
Yeah, like, are you using it on a tiny phone screen while you're squished onto a noisy train? Or are you at home on a big desktop monitor?
What's your emotional state? Stressed? Relaxed? A website that looks gorgeous on a desktop might be completely unusable on mobile if the context isn't considered.
Ah, okay. So the design needs to adapt to my reality.
Right. The best designs fit into your world, anticipating things like a small screen, maybe a slow connection, or even if you're distracted. Makes the product feel like it just fits into life. Powerful. Okay, what about user control?
User control is about giving you, well, a sense of agency, making you feel in charge. You need the right amount of control over what's happening. And crucially, you need clear emergency exits, ways to undo mistakes without messing everything up.
Like an undo button.
Exactly. Or a cancel button. Think about those awful autocorrect fails when you're texting.
Ah, the worst.
Right. Well, the principle of user control means there should be an easy way for you to catch and fix that before you hit send. It gives you the confidence to explore, to try things, knowing you can back out if you need to.
So I don't feel tracked by the system. That's a huge relief, actually. Okay, next up is accessibility.
Accessibility is so important and, honestly, sometimes still overlooked. It simply means designing products and services so they can be used by as many people as possible.
Including people with disabilities.
Absolutely. People with visual impairments, hearing impairments, motor difficulties, cognitive differences. But it also includes temporary situations, like maybe having a broken arm, or situational things, like being in bright sunlight where you can't see the screen well.
So what does that look like in practice?
It could be things like using high contrast between text and background color so it's easier to read,
Mm-hmm.
providing ways to navigate using just a keyboard,
Yeah.
making sure videos have clear captions. It's about inclusivity, making sure digital experiences aren't leaving people out.
Making things available to everyone. That's vital. Okay, and the last one on the list is usability.
Usability. This is really a direct measure of how easy a product is to use. And for a good user experience, usability is generally considered more important than just pure aesthetics.
More important than how pretty it looks.
Often, yes. Now, usability itself has like 5 components according to the sources. First, learnability. How easy is it for someone new to figure it out? Second, efficiency. Once you know how to use it, can you do things quickly? Third, memorability. If you step away for a while, how easy is it to remember how to use it when you come back?
Right, like riding a bike or not.
Exactly. Fourth, errors. How often do people make mistakes using it? How bad are the mistakes? And how easily can they recover? Which, ties right back into user control.
Makes sense.
And fifth, satisfaction. Is it actually pleasant to use? Is it enjoyable? So a product might look amazing, but if it's hard to learn, slow to use, easy to mess up on, then the usability is low and the overall UX suffers.
The Uber app often comes up here, right? And people say it's super usable, very easy to just pick up and get a ride.
Yeah, that's a common example. It generally scores well on those usability points, especially learnability and efficiency for its core task. So usability is really about ensuring that smooth, efficient, hopefully pleasant interaction,
Right.
so you can just get done what you need to do without fighting the tool.
What strikes me here is that these 7 principles, they don't exist in silos, do they? Like maybe focusing really hard on user control could potentially make something a bit harder to learn initially, affecting learnability. Do designers have to make trade-offs?
Oh, absolutely. All the time. It's the constant balancing act. It's very, very rare that you can perfectly maximize all 7 principles at once. A huge part of a designer's skill is figuring out which principles are the most important for this specific product, for this particular group of users in this specific context.
So it's about finding the right balance for the situation.
Exactly. It's about making smart compromises, informed trade-offs. That's where the real expertise comes in.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so shifting gears slightly, with these principles as the foundation, what does the world of UX design look like as a career? You mentioned it's multidisciplinary.
It really is. You find UX designers who started in visual design, sure, but also psychology, anthropology, computer science, library science, all sorts. What brings them together is that role of being the user's advocate.
The user's advocate, I like that.
Yeah, they're the ones constantly asking, but what about the user? Keeping those needs front and center through the whole design and development process, they translate human needs into something that can actually be built and used effectively.
So what kind of things do they actually do day to day beyond thinking about principles? What are the tools they use?
It's pretty varied. A lot of it involves research, talking to users, observing them, sending out surveys. They create things like personas, which are like fictional character profiles representing key user types. They sketch ideas, build wireframes, which are like basic blueprints, create interactive prototypes, and then critically test those designs with real people to see what works and what doesn't.
And the tools.
Can be anything, really, from literally just paper and pen for quick sketches, which is still super common.
Really, pen and paper.
Oh yeah, especially early on. Then you move to digital tools. Things like Figma or Sketch for detailed design and prototyping, Miro or FigJam for online whiteboarding and brainstorming, maybe Typeform or Google Forms for creating surveys to gather user feedback. Lots of different tools for different stages.
Okay. And why should businesses care so much? We know it makes users happier, but does good UX actually affect the bottom line?
Hugely. It's not just about nice to have.
Yeah.
When you fulfill user needs effectively, people like your product, they trust your brand, they stick around, that's loyalty. And they tell their friends, that's growth.
Okay, loyalty and growth.
Plus, and this is crucial, good UX actually reduces costs. If you do the research up front and design the right thing from the start, you spend way less time and money fixing mistakes later or building features nobody actually uses. You also reduce customer support costs because the product is easier to use, gives you real competitive edge. So yes, it absolutely drives revenue and impacts the bottom line.
Fewer fixes, less support, happier customers. Sounds like a win-win. Now, the elephant in the room. AI, artificial intelligence. Is it going to replace UX designers?
The big question. Look, AI is definitely changing things. It can automate some tasks, analyze huge data sets much faster than a human, even offer smart suggestions for things like layouts or color
Right.
combinations.
So bad news for designers.
Not necessarily replace, I think, more like
Yeah.
change the job. AI is really good at optimization and pattern recognition, but it fundamentally lacks genuine creativity, empathy, that deep understanding of human nuances, emotions, cultural context, the stuff human designers excel at.
So AI handles the routine stuff.
Kind of. The real shift might be that AI takes over some of the more basic, repetitive design tasks. This actually frees up human designers to focus on the more complex, strategic, ethical parts of the job. Understanding the deeper why, navigating tricky human problems, real innovation. It's less about replacement, more about AI becoming a powerful tool and assistant, pushing designers towards higher level thinking.
That's a really interesting take. It elevates the human role rather than eliminating it. Okay, so for listeners who might be thinking, hey, this sounds fascinating, what does it actually take to become a UX designer?
Well, the good news is it's a field with incredibly high demand right now, globally, and that translates into good earning potential. In the US, for instance, the average starting salary in 2023 was around $75,000 a year.
75,000 starting. Wow.
Yeah, and that can climb well over $120,000, even $130,000 or more with experience. Plus, it's known for being very remote work friendly. It's a big plus for a lot of people these days.
Okay, high demand, good pay, remote options. Do you need a specific 4-year degree, though?
Interestingly, not always. While a degree in design, psychology, HCI, human-computer interaction, or something related can definitely help, it's not a strict requirement for many roles.
Really?
Yeah, lots of successful UX designers are actually self-taught, or they transition from other fields. What employers really care about, more than a specific degree, is your portfolio.
Your portfolio.
Exactly. A strong portfolio that clearly shows you understand the design process, you can use the key tools, you grasp these core principles we've talked about, and you can actually design solutions to real problems. Demonstrating your skills is key.
That opens doors for a lot of people. I've heard that graphic designers often transition quite successfully into UX. Does that track? What gives them an edge?
Oh, absolutely. Graphic designers have a massive head start in many ways. They already have a strong grasp of aesthetics, visual communication, using color and typography to evoke emotion.
Right, the visual side.
Yeah, and they're usually skilled creative thinkers, problem solvers. Plus, they're often familiar with basic design conventions, like they know what a toggle switch should probably look like or how a drop-down menu usually behaves. That's all hugely valuable.
So what's the main thing they need to add?
The biggest piece they typically need to develop is the user research side, really digging into understanding user behavior through interviews, observation, analyzing data. Adding that deep user-centric research methodology to their existing visual skills is the key transition.
Got it. So build on the visual foundation with that user research focus. That makes total sense, reinforcing that multidisciplinary idea again.
And it's interesting that visual skill they bring, it actually has a documented effect. It's called the aesthetic usability effect.
Aesthetic usability.
Yeah. Basically, studies show that people often perceive more beautiful, aesthetically pleasing interfaces as being more usable, even if they objectively aren't slightly better or worse.
Wow, really?
Yeah, a nice-looking design can make users feel more relaxed, more positive, and even more forgiving of minor usability flaws. So that visual appeal graphic designers are good at. It actually contributes directly to the overall user experience in a psychological way. It's not just fluff.
So looks do matter, just not in isolation from usability.
Fascinating. Okay, we've covered a ton today. From really defining UX to beyond the surface, Don Norman's big picture view, those 7 core principles, even getting into the career side and AI. What's the main takeaway for listeners, for us users navigating this digital world? I think the key takeaway is that understanding these principles, even just basically, gives you a new lens. It helps you appreciate why some products just feel right, why they solve your problems so intuitively. It's about recognizing the deliberate craft behind experiences that are efficient, effective, and maybe even a little bit delightful.
So for your provocative thought today, next time you're using an app, a website, maybe even interacting with a smart device at home, or hey, even looking at that ketchup bottle, don't just use it. Take a second, pause.
Yeah, try to spot the principles. Can you see user centricity in action? Is the hierarchy clear? How's the usability? Where does it really shine because of these ideas?
And maybe where could it be better if they'd maybe prioritize consistency a bit more or thought harder about the context you're in?
Exactly. Just start noticing. We really encourage you to keep observing the design of things you interact with every day. You'll probably be surprised how often you see these principles applied or maybe missed once you actually start looking for them.